Here we are. So, as we were saying before in the first segment, you were taking an eraser and just removing everything, everybody, your past, starting over fresh and anew.
I even went as far as to, I made graves, and my dad, which is, he's a introvert. He can't walk. He's been diagnosed with something called Devick's disease, and he had been down for about maybe a year. I was watching him. I was his home health care before we left to go to Atlanta, and something spoke to me and said it was an actual date. It was like on the 12th of so-and-so month, he's going to die. But it's okay. You're going to be fine. It was like so I don't know. I made a grave. I dug a grave, deep grave for my father. I dug a grave for things that I wanted to put away in my life. It was like I put cigarettes and weed and different stuff in this grave. It was just stuff would come to me to do this, and that it's like I was getting self-revelations of how to help myself to be better, and those were some of the things. And I mean, that even scared my cousin and the guys that I was with, because I would do certain things like that. Like, we were one night there and watching X-Men, and I kept looking at them like they were trying to harm me, and I jumped up and grabbed my cousin who was...
Were you up under the influence of drugs at that time, or alcohol or anything like that when that particular incident was going on?
Well, they say it stays in your system so long, but I hadn't done nothing that day, but I had done it, maybe prior to, maybe 2-3 days before.
Okay.
But this was around the time when I felt like that they were trying to get me to do, because I kept asking them while we went, even when we left the meeting, I was like, so y'all didn't feel like nothing weird was going on, like, or what? They was like, I mean, not really. I mean, you just was really stuck. So I'm like, so by that time, because I'm aggressive, probably emotional, but sometimes I really start feeling like they were trying to, set me up. So we were sitting there watching X-Men. It's about 1 in the morning, and I got up and grabbed one of them and choked them, and I was like, if y'all are trying to do anything to me, I'll kill y'all, man. And I just came back to, like, what am I doing? And, it was just stuff like that was just, it's amazing to me how, I felt like that whatever it is that kept me from going was really fighting inside to keep me where I was supposed to be, because I feel stuff. I'm a discerning person now, so I felt like any little bit of whatever that would be, I already felt like I was vulnerable because they were saying I took too much drugs and this and that. So I'm just, thinking, okay, like, I don't like to feel like I'm being taken advantage of, but that's where I was feeling like it was going. And after a certain point, so I would look at them even like, because I was trying to find myself again after so long. It's like, what's going on here? Like, why am I doing it? Like, after I realized, okay, I don't have my wallet, why am I really, because it wasn't like money was involved then. If I was making money, it was like I was hurting, and so I was having so many emotions.
So you weren't happy really during that time?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Nah, I wasn't happy.
Was there a false hope or a false happiness?
That's why I know that God is real, because you don't have, in those times where you would want to just cry and say, Lord, help me, you already done, it's a double standard, because you're saying that you are God. So how can you draw from yourself? That's what I'm like, so seriously. And it was just like, the people around me weren't, it got very lonely in those times where, I think that's why I really couldn't sleep at night also, because it just wasn't, I couldn't feel the peace that I needed to feel.
So you couldn't sleep at night. Were thoughts running through your mind at night? What type of thoughts?
I would have dreams about my family. I would have dreams about being, like, locked away.
Like in prison on an island, or
no,
what type of locking away?
When I say locked away, I mean like in a room, just dreams of isolation.
Okay.
Trying to get out of dark hallways. I remember dreaming that a lot. And I would sleep short times, 10, 15 minutes, felt like I'm sleeping, wake up, and it's only been 15 minutes, and it's 2 in the morning, so I would just get up and go outside, and I felt more peaceful outside than I did in, for some reason. out in nature. I would go in places where you would like, in wooded areas.
Okay, I was about to ask you, what places?
Like wooded areas. I just wanted to be deep into wooded areas where they would say, do not pass this, trespass. I would just go out, and then by it being so dark, I just felt real safe out there. I could hear sounds better. I didn't have, like now I would go out and be fearful, like, man, what's out here? But then there was no kind of And I didn't have any fear of, I mean, I probably would have done something that would have killed me, literally, because I just didn't fear. I felt like fear was the devil.
Okay.
Anything that made fear come in, that was me fighting against me.
Okay.
So.
Huh. So did you talk to the animals, and did the animals talk back to you?
Well, seriously, I did. I felt like I connected with, they didn't talk back to me, but I would talk to the animals, birds, and definitely dogs. I would always force myself to try to connect with them or say something to them, which they never said anything much back, but
Did he look at you like you were crazy? What's wrong with him?
Right. So like I said, when we would go to these two people in particular's house, they had pit bulls, huge, and they would talk to them without talking. Like we'd be sitting there and they just grumble something, and the dog would like go to doing, and I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. So I tried my best to be friendly with animals because I really felt like that my vibe controlled how animals responded to me, period. You know, they sense fear or any kind of anything in you.
Okay. Now, let's go back here a moment, because in the beginning you were saying that when you were disconnecting yourself from family that you began to dig graves. Mm-hmm. What were these graves for? What took you to that point of digging graves? What was the purpose of the graves?
The purpose was, at that time, like I said, I dug one for my father because something told me on the 12th of a certain month that he was going to pass. So I felt like I was digging a grave, and I wanted my cousin and friend to be there at the ceremony because I wasn't going to go back home. I mean, I literally thought it was going to happen, and I dug a grave. And I dug a grave for myself. When I say myself, I mean like habits and things that I wanted to get away from me. I put stuff in there, sex magazines, different stuff that I wanted to just clean out of my life, and I buried that. And then I did another one for, I think it was for the symbolization of the third one was like just for everybody that I wanted to just get out of my life and just put behind me. I dug graves, and Did
you put their names in the graves?
Mm-hmm. Or I put names in the grave. And
how deep were these graves?
Oh man, I dug them. I mean, I dug them for about probably like 2-3 feet.
And where were these graves dug at?
In the back of in the apartments where we were the condos, there was a wooded area, not too far behind where they had swings and stuff. They had an area where you could walk your dogs and
like a trail, somewhat, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I dug them at.
Did you put headstones there? Or?
No, but I put something there to where, like, even to this day, I want to see if they still. I know they're still there. You know, I put like little stakes that would let me identify where they were. So I did that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you said earlier that your mother had talked to you, and what was that conversation like? What was?
Well, she called and was asking me how I was, and I instantly went to, I'm not good. I feel like that I said I didn't want to talk to you because I feel like that you guys have shorted me. Y'all have taught me wrong. Y'all, raised me up in the church and to believe certain stuff that wasn't true, and I'm not saying it's you guys' fault, but I'm just saying, and she was like what? And that's when I went to saying, like, for one, that Jesus is God's son, and that, there's a heaven and there's a hell, and that the only way to get to heaven is through Jesus. And she was like, well, how do you get to heaven? So I say, there is no heaven. And that's when she, like, because coming from my mother, it's like, I said, there's no heaven, there's no hell. I said, you're God, just like I'm God. And I said, all of that stuff was lies. And she was just like, I don't know what's going on, who you're around, but all I can do is pray right now for your son, because she said the stuff that you're saying, she said, it's not my son on the phone, and she literally hung up the phone, and I didn't talk to her for a couple of months. But come to find out that she called prayer warriors up, and I guess she figured she couldn't talk me out of this one, so I know that's what she figured, because she told me, she said that she couldn't even sleep days. I mean, she prayed and prayed and prayed and put down her meals and everything.
So she fasted and prayed, sought the face of God.
Her and my grandmother and my uncles, like the ones I told you that pastored me. Oh yeah, I didn't even know what I had. As far as prayer and coverage, that's what kept me, because there was so much that I could have tipped over. I know for a fact, one wrong, because I wasn't covering myself, so I know for a fact that that's what kept me over, the prayers of my family.
The fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous does what? Availeth much.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
There is so much power in prayer. And the prayer can be negative or it can be positive.
That's it, yeah.
You know, so Satanists come together and they pray. And they're praying for souls to be drawn into their kingdom. They're praying for demise and injuries and sufferings to take place in people's lives to make them turn their back on God. For those who believed in God, or even had a relationship with God, they wreak so much havoc in their lives, and to make them turn their back on God. Those that have an idea or know about God but was not connected to Him, those are the ones that they can easily pull into a lot of times. What we kind of like can relate to as a natural man, you know, the natural man. But these are some pretty interesting stuff. So you said something about the Masons. Have you had any type of contact with the Masons?
Well, no, I haven't had any contact with the Masons other than just meeting a few people that were Masons and having conversations with them, but never to a religious point of like where we were with what we believe. No, I didn't have. I mentioned before the Palladians.
Yeah. Talk to me about the Palladians.
That came later on, and the Palladians are a group of people, kind of like Abraham and Jerry, who take on the soul of people, and that people allow to speak through them. But they have different things on the internet that talks about shifts that are occurring throughout the universe that have always happened. They said they've been around since the ages, but after so long, they don't say God. I think they say Source gets there's a shift that must occur. In 2012 was supposed to be a year of shift, definitely. They kept saying about from May to December that there would be shifts in a consciousness, a raising consciousness of who we are as people. And they were saying the Palladians have come to aid the earth in this shift that's going on in consciousness. And that was pretty interesting to me. It was basically saying about how there is evil and there is good. It explained how you have a choice whether you're going to be on the evil side or a good side, but all we have to do is enjoy yourself. They didn't want you to be fearful or in pressure about the choice. Your choice needed to be to enjoy. That's it. And but they never those I didn't really get too far, because by the time I really learned about the Palladians' messages, I was coming up out of it, like I told you, from the Creflo Dollar, and went to church and came home and kind of stopped with dealing with it at all. But yeah, that was a very interesting thing also that had to do with stuff to expect. They gave you stuff to expect that was supposed to be happening in the earth about, like natural disasters and casualties.
So these were supposed to be a type of prophecy, per se?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Have you witnessed any of these manifesting or coming to pass?
No, not really. I haven't. Well, I mean, I definitely feel a shift in just where even religion is going and where like people's minds are. I feel like there's a shift occurring, but I don't believe it's anything that isn't different from what I just believe God is doing. And now I have a purpose, but I believe that God is just moving the minds of people that are, like, even with this is going on, I feel like that it may not have been as accepted before. That's the shift I'm talking about, is to where like we're becoming more knowledgeable and you're exposing certain stuff and helping people to have tools that's going to carry them through stuff like this and attacks. And so I believe that has manifested, because what they were speaking of was a good thing. They were saying that evil is really rising right now, but good will stand. You choose your side, basically. So I believe that I chose my side. I believe that that's definitely a truth.
So many things being pulled from the Word of God to build their foundation on. However, the structure is not God, so it will fall.
Right.
Babylon will fall.
Right.
Babylon will be destroyed. When we were talking a little bit earlier, you were telling me something about the indigo children. You mentioned that, and I didn't have a chance to do an intensive study on it, but from what my understanding is that these are like kids that have maybe some medical issues or autism or ADD, ADHD, where the parents are being told that these children have special gifts or abilities.
Right.
So from the study that I did, the little that I got out of it, they were also saying that it was making parents not get medical attention for the kids, rather than it was shifting these kids into a type of organization or whatever.
That's where they're trying to.
But the bottom line of it was all new age.
Yeah, that's what I'm almost. Yeah, it is. It really is. And that's what kind of gets me. Like once I start to realize how new age it is, it's like, how are you just gonna just all of a sudden label it as this, and that's what we're supposed to go with? You know, like I believe that. Yeah, that's what the Indigo Children was basically saying, that if you were born within this certain amount of time, that you were chosen, you had been chosen to do a mission, and you weren't going to be satisfied until you were able to do things the way that you were going to do it. And that's usually kids that are hyperactive and that are diagnosed with ADD, and most of them are creative. They're not easily accepted with regular jobs. They're like painters and artists, and see, I'm telling you,
creative force.
Period.
So, yeah.
And they don't want you to, like you said,
free spirited. Would you say
right,
they're more
right.
so free spirited?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Don't want to be contained
at all.
into certain rules or,
right.
or regulations,
exactly.
environment.
Exactly.
They had to be whom they are. So okay.
And they were interested in those type kids. I tell you, so I could tell.
How did they find these kids? I mean, how did they recruit? How did they do their research?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Well, how did you get introduced to them? How were you introduced to?
Through one of the speakers was speaking. The Palladians. They talked about Indigo Children were here to aid in the whole shift. They were a very important part of the process. So we were like, Indigo Children, and we looked it up. And we start seeing so many videos on it. I didn't even know what it was.
Okay.
But yeah, they are definitely here to aid in the shift of consciousness, to bring on this new, I guess what they're trying to do, this new age of thinking, this new
way of thinking.
Right.
To okay, so you were saying something also about if they were born within a certain time frame. Is it just a set time frame, or how is this time frame?
Well, I know when they described it, they said usually within from 1970 something to about 1990, those were the times when they said that the bulk of Indigo Children were during that time they were sprouting.
You know what's amazing?
What?
Within that era too, that's when crack cocaine really came out a little bit more, especially the 80s and 90s, at least here in the South. I don't know exactly where it was up north and all, you know. And also during the 70s, we were coming up out of the hippie age and the hippie stage, you know, the free life, free spirited, do what you desire to do, being a flower child, you know, soul power, you know, brotherhood and things of this nature. So it seems to me like it was something that was pulled off of something else, you know, because when you talk about, when you kind of look at it, these the flower children or the hippies or the black hippies or whatever, it was a lot of weed being smoked, which was a type of hallucinogen. You know, it gives you, it was a euphoric drug, which meant that it opened up your mind to believe almost anything, you know. And there were other drugs, LSD, then, you know, and during that time there were so many cases that you heard about somebody saying, I can fly, and they jumped off of bridges and buildings and all because they were tripping. So I'm looking at that drug scene connected with the crack cocaine scene. And these are babies from this age, from that time, you know. And when you look at some of our children, our young adults, our adults per se, now they're adults now, they're in some of this the way they think and see things is different, and even children nowadays is like an offspring of that, you know?
Right, I agree.
So the devil has an assignment, you know? He has a plan, he has people in place to design these things. But what I want to ask you, when you were a child, did you ever play with the Ouija board?
No, I never played with the Ouija board.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
That you know of, okay. Was there anybody in your family that you knew of that possibly had this free-spirited way of thinking in your immediate family, on your mother's side, your dad's side?
Well, I know on my dad's side there's a lot of witchcraft and stuff, but not the free speaking. But yeah, my aunties, you know, they always have been into that type of, but it wasn't. I don't think that was free spirited. Okay,
no, okay. I'm glad you brought it. I was trying to be nice about it, but you brought it out exactly as it is. Okay, that's wonderful, because what we don't understand a lot of times is that when there is witchcraft in our bloodline, some of the witchcraft is a mild type of witchcraft. Then there's some heavy duty witchcraft. And then there's witches that do not realize that they're witches, and those are the ones that we consider as blind witches, meaning that they come from a family of witches, and they love God. However, they have they operate as a witch, and they don't realize it. They're blind to that, you know?
Ignorance.
Exactly, ignorant to it. So when you have witchcraft in your family, in your bloodline, especially if it goes back generations, there is always going to be somebody whom they can pick and choose to be the one to continue to carry that thing out. So, oh great, this is beautiful. Let me just read something.
Okay.
I just want to read something here. I did a teaching, and it's called Identifying the Strong Man. And the things that you were dealing with during this time, how long a phase were you in that phase?
I said about 8 months.
About 8 months. That was a lot that took place within an 8-month period.
There's still some, you know, that as I talk, it comes back to me.
It comes back to you,
but
okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot. I mean, a lot.
Okay, now, here's some things that have to do with bloodlines, okay? What the Bible refers to as strong men. One of them is called the spirit of divination. Up under the spirit of divination, they have the fortune tellers and soothsayers, so they were predicting some things. Suppose that there's some prophecies concerning when there was going to be some certain shiftings. A lot of them were really warlocks and witches. That's in the bloodline as well. Stargazing under the stars, connecting with the stars and the universe. Here you will see hypnotists. I don't know if you were being hypnotized during that time, but meditation very strong, right? And look at this, drugs. Drugs is a part of that. It falls into it, and drugs plays a great big role with that. Wow, you know, drugs can be like a familiar spirit. Let me see, there's something else. That was spirit of divination, right? Along with that is a familiar spirit. The reason why I asked you, was there anybody in your family? Because familiar means family, basically. And a familiar spirit doesn't always have to be from the bloodline. It can be just through connections or relationships with other people, but basically families. And what the familiar spirit does is claim a bloodline, and they will choose one. So by you being inquisitive and wanting to know things, you were the one that they pulled. So, necromancy, graveyard digging,
Lord have mercy.
Mediums, peeping and muttering, that's a type of demonic tongues, okay? Yoga, definitely, okay? Passive mind, daydreamers, hallucinogens, all of that falls in place with that. Drugs again, okay? And also false prophecy. So the Bible has a lot to say concerning the things that are taking place. You know, the
prophet that fell upon him when I thought my dad was going around here saying, putting him in the grave, and he not. Lord have mercy.
Is your father still living?
Still living.
So the devil is a lie, right? The devil is a lie. Now, glory to God.
Yes,
so, you know, it is so much in the Word of God that opens up and tells us and to help us to get on the right track.
Right.
You know, God knew this before anything was ever going to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
So he put the word in place. Here's another one with this. Lying spirit. So these spirits came in and lied to people and pulled people in. They flatter you by telling you that you are a God.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's the main.
That you're equal to Jesus.
Yeah,
okay. Then they give you false prophecies. Under that lying spirit also comes strong deception. Your mind is strongly deceived concerning the things that they're teaching you, and you're taking this in. You're like a sponge.
That's it.
And you're soaking it all up.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
no matter how much water you pour, it's like you're still soaking it up. Then there's religious bondages, okay? They stated that they were setting you free from religion. However, that was a different type of religion. It was a type of doctrine. So you were still in bondage because your mind was offset by negative thinking and by lies. Accusations per se, you went and accused your family of not raising you right, of cheating you out of things, and you felt like they were lying to you. However, this lying spirit was lying to you all the time. False teachers. Definitely false teachers. So these are just a few things in the Word of God.
Right.
God said He would not have us ignorant to the wiles of the enemy. And you said something earlier. You said that you were one that was very inquisitive, and you still are, that you went and studied to show yourself approved. And we can show ourselves approved to something negative or something positive.
You're sure right. That's why I said when you're in the midst of that type of study, make sure you have your partner, a mentor, or somebody who can hold you accountable for where you are. Because I think that I know for a fact now that God had me to go through what I went through so that I would be able to help others, to be a testimony to young men and women that, because I would like to help people to not go too far into those, or even, well, what happens when we don't get too far into wanting to know too much. Because it's like you can go on a real roller coaster ride, and I think I really want to be able to help people to understand, because when you ask for certain questions, if you really, God has a way of sending you answers, and it's not always the way you think you're going to get them. In a book, you have to go through some stuff to get certain answers, and I really believe that it helped and strengthened my relationship and faith in God also, because if it had not been for that stuff, I wouldn't be able to say that. And I know the peace that I have now when I can say, Lord, I thank you. Lord, I love you. Thank you, God. You're so good. And, oh, Lord, I don't know why you're doing this, but I know it's got to be you working it out. And I just, there's no way in the world that you could take that away from a person who believes that. You know what I mean? And it feels good. Another thing came to me when you was talking that even now, my thing with I would love to not see separation so much where religion is concerned. That was a big thing for me as to why I kept, because there was no, not saying that there's a boundary where race and religion is now, but I'm saying just in the Christians, in the how we just have it so bunched up and different, and I don't know if I don't want to say that I don't believe God will have it to be that way, but it just seems like it's got to be a better way of connecting people other than just categorizing them by the slight difference in how they believe about, you know what I mean, about the heaven or hell thing or whatever it is that the difference is, or about, Jesus just being a teacher, or Jesus being the Son of God, or Jesus being, I know you have to believe that, but that's where I guess I have to realize that I can't save the world, or if that's not the way God will have me to, that I really just wish I could, come up with some kind of organization that could help to close the gap where religion is concerned with Christians and Buddhists and different people. And I don't know if that could ever happen. What you think?
Well, here's the thing. There's only one God, one Jesus. There's only one way to God, and that is through Jesus. Mm-hmm. I like to think about Paul in the Bible, who was once Saul. Mm-hmm. And he served God. However, he was a very religious man. Mm-hmm. He was taught by the best. And he was on both sides as a Jew, and as a Roman.
Right,
so
he killed Christians, right?
Yeah, that's the one that would persecute the Christians. And he was the one that went to go get the letter to go and persecute, kill, and jail more, whether they were women, babies, children, men, or whatever. He was zealous for what he believed in.
Right.
So, you know, when he had that experience with Jesus on the road to Damascus, that opened up his eyes, and he couldn't do anything but fall on his knees, because the light of Jesus Christ was ever so blinding till it just